All right, welcome everybody. I need to work on a new intro because indeed today is Draft on Tap and not a Big Douglas show. But here we are. I'm Big Doug. That's Adam and Aniba. We're here every week to get you closer and ready for the draft. With us today is Jamie Eisner from the Draft Network. Jamie, how are you?
Doing great. Just got back from Indianapolis a couple days ago, starting to feel human again. It is a fun grind, but there's a lot of football, a lot of steak, and a lot of alcohol that goes into every combine trip and getting information and whatnot. So it's great every year, but finally happy to be able to decompress a little bit and look back on what we actually saw there in Indianapolis.
And we're going to get to that certainly here in a minute. But first time to the show, so we'd like to get to know you a little bit. How is it that you ended up with the Draft Network? And as COO, what is it that you kind of do for them?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey through the sports world. I started out as a hockey beat writer for the Arizona Coyotes. I covered Major League Baseball for MLB.com. I've covered college football, college basketball, high school, but it all kind of started with the Draft Network with a few of the people that I hired on as writers back when I was running a national site called FanRag Sports. I ended up leaving to start the Draft Network. And so I known them for a long time. They worked for me. Then they ended up hiring me on to TDN. And, throughout the years, I've been able to kind of move my way up. And, pretty much my role here is anything you see on the draftnetwork.com has come across my desk. From the idea generation, posting, editing, writing, all of that stuff. I'm basically, COO is a nice title, but essentially I'm a content officer. So I am basically doing anything that we're producing, helping with social media a little bit, behind the scenes on some video and audio stuff. So pretty much anything that goes out to be publicly seen, at some point I've had my finger in the pie of that. So doing a little bit of everything for the Draft Network.
Love it.
What is something, seeing the combine in person, we see it on TV every year, watch it, but what's something that you've seen in person that just jumps out at you, just stands out?
Yeah, I think it's just getting to try to get an idea of who these players are as people. And we have a big presence down in Mobile for the Senior Bowl as well, and that's an incredible exercise. But look, at the end of the day, the tape is the tape. You've seen some of these guys you've seen play football for 4 or 5 years, especially in this class. Talking about the Bo Nixes and the Jane Daniels, etc. You've seen what they have there. There's only so much you can glean from them, in the skin tight shirt and shorts and throwing the ball on air to nobody. But you don't really get a chance to be around people. You're kind of watching from afar, or you're watching out of context. And so much of professional sports in any league is the mental game. Can you handle the stress? Can you handle the pressure? Will you crumble? I mean, there's so many aspects to that. I'm just trying to get a gauge of who these people are and really just kind of keeping your ear to the ground and listening. Who are the players that the league is talking about? Because more often than not, there's a disparity between what social media or even, TV media might be talking about and who the actual league is talking about. And some of these quote unquote draft day surprises aren't really surprises internally. They're surprises because people are late getting to them. And I think we're starting to kind of see a little bit of that now on social media for certain guys. But those are the two things is networking with people to see who, what information is out there, maybe what some red flags out there that you may not be able to say publicly, but more often than not, teams are looking for reasons not to draft you. So it's all those things are key. But from a player perspective, just getting a sense of who these guys are, what makes them tick, as best you can in, a couple days. You're not going to learn a guy's whole life story like you were being around him, but you can kind of get a sense of, somebody that might be just like a complete red flag once you get a chance to be around.
I've often had people tell me that you can't fully understand the combine until you go as a whirlwind. Jamie, what is something that that the average fan that's never been would be surprised?
I think they would be surprised about how little NFL evaluators care about the stuff that they broadcast on TV. I know obviously that aspect is huge, and I think look, the league is extended in Indy for 1 more year, but I think it's a pretty open secret. They're trying to take this on the road, maybe to LA, maybe to Vegas, someplace like that to kind of make this more of a spectacle. But reality is the medical checks and the interviews are the 2 biggest aspects of the combine. And, yes, there are chances with players that have wide ranging grades or have a specific thing a team wants to see. They have speed questions, or they have hip tightness questions. They have these questions that there might be individual drills that they then look at and they look at the numbers. But the reality is a lot of these teams already know which guys they're interested in, what kind of range they think they're going to be in, and they're using these numbers just to kind of confirm what they've already seen on tape. The biggest movers and shakers in this are usually medicals, whether it's checking guys out like a Michael Penix, who has a long history of leg injuries and making sure he's good, or like what happened with Kool-Aid McKinstry, finding a new injury. It's not a major one, the Jones fracture in the foot, but those are two really key factors in this evaluation process, and talking to the guys one-on-one. I think anybody that's been to the combine knows that a lot of the NFL coaches, they're out late and they're out drinking and they're out having a good time, because the reality is they're not caring about how many bench press reps you do. They're caring about what you do when you look at them face to face, and because a lot of this evaluation for them is already done.
You mentioned a couple of guys there that needed to check a couple of boxes. I'm curious, were there a couple of guys that maybe moved up, got a bump from the combine, and maybe you got a couple of guys that maybe fell a little bit post combine?
Yeah, I think the big bump, and this was more so for the interview process, was Jayden Daniels. And I know we've been kind of trending in this direction. I know he's been mocked in the top 3, so it's not like he had a lot of room to go up. But I think teams were very, very impressed by him. Everything I heard is that Michael Penix Jr. as well, both knocked the interviews out of the park. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr. raised the stock by just having clean medicals. Obviously, you still have to deal with, the torn ACLs from the past were still torn. You can't go back and untear them. But I think that both of those guys have really helped their draft stock and answered some questions to the point where I think Daniels could be the number 2 pick, which I know would be a very interesting piece for this audience. But I think he is very, very much in play. And I think there are more teams in the NFL right now that have Jayden Daniels as their QB2 than Drake May as their QB2.
Overall, what is your impression? Because obviously, the big 3 didn't really throw at the combine, really didn't do much. What's your overall impressions of the quarterback class?
That I think it's a really interesting class in general, and I think we're seeing the media kind of catch up on the JJ McCarthy hype. There's been a lot of hype from him in particular in league circles well before kind of the combine and well before everything else, and liking his tools. But I think there's a clear top 4. I think for the most part, Caleb Williams is going to be QB1 on most teams' boards, and I don't think that's going to be super controversial. The next 3 guys are going to be interesting, and I think they're going to be ranked differently through different teams. But to me, I think there's a clear, Williams, Daniels, May, and McCarthy are clearly the top 4. I think all 4 of them are top 10 locks, might even be top 5 or 6 locks. And then I'm not sure, because there are going to be a lot of QB needy teams. I'm not certain Penix goes in round 1. I'm not certain Bo Nix goes in round 1. I think both those guys will be coveted and potentially top 50 picks, but I'm not sure, if I'm a team like Minnesota or I'm a team like the Raiders or the Broncos and I'm the one that's not able to move up, I'm not sure I'm taking one of those guys there.
Right.
I might try to trade back and take one maybe later in the first, but if I had to set the over under, I think 4.5 is a pretty good number, because I could see a 5th going, but I'm not convinced yet that 5th quarterback's coming off the board in the first round.
If you can try to explain it, we get more people asking about what it is with McCarthy that makes the jump. Please explain it to us. Have somebody that's on the show explain it to us. We get this all the time. I get it, but the numbers weren't there. Yeah, I think I understand it, but maybe you'll explain it just a little bit for the folks watching.
Yeah, I think anybody that's been around coaches, particularly at the high school, collegiate, pro level, they know of what's the one thing they want to do. It's I can make that guy into something. Right. And I think that's the nature of what's surrounding Jayden McCarthy. He's got the arm talent. He's got the athletic ability. He's got all the pieces to the puzzle that you want. We just didn't see them all put together at Michigan. And I think it's fair to question why Jim Harbaugh didn't let him open it up more, why he didn't trust him over that running game. Now, it's an elite running game. They won a national title, so who am I to question that strategy? But I understand why somebody saying, well, if Jim didn't trust him in college, why should an NFL team trust him with a top 5 or top 10 pick? But I think in this case is a scenario where a coach is going to say they didn't need him to use all of the tools in his tool bag at Michigan, and we can develop him into something because he's got all the pieces that you'd like to see. And one wonders if he played, at a more pass-heavy school, if he would not be in contention to be QB2 right now. And I know there are some teams that have him as their QB2. So it's not about raw traits in the way that was like with Anthony Richardson last year, where you had same deal where you had all the pieces to the puzzle where we hadn't seen it. I think they think JJ's a little bit more polished at this stage, but he didn't have a chance to use it, where Anthony Richardson's upside was higher than JJ's, but he needed a little bit more reps to get in. So I think in this case, you're going to look at a team that says he was in an NFL offense, coached by an NFL head coach that they can talk to about this scenario and has talked him up really highly and can do a little bit of everything well. And the fact that he was able to put on some weight for the combine and look good while throwing the football is encouraging for him as well. So I know he's the guy that's going to be why do we take this guy? He didn't put up the numbers in college, but coaches are looking at him and they're saying that's a guy we can mold into a franchise quarterback.
Do evaluators look at a guy like that and say, I wonder what he would have looked like in the LSU offense? What Aiden Daniels looked like if we'd have put him in Harbaugh's system, or Drake May in that LSU system? Is that something that top-level evaluators do, or something we do at home?
No, it is something that they would do. And I think that's why when you watch a quarterback like this, you watch every throw. Because what you're trying to see is translatability. Is he making, when he's asked to throw, is he making the throws that he would be asked to make at the NFL level? How accurate is he there? Where is he putting the ball in relation to is his receiver bailing him out? Or is he actually putting the ball in the right spot for the receiver? And then you kind of try to extrapolate that out. And I think that's the key evaluation with JJ McCarthy, even though he doesn't have as many reps as a lot of the quarterbacks in this draft. He's got really strong reps, and he's got enough of those skill sets that you say, if we give this guy more opportunities, we believe he can make those throws at a higher quantity. And I think that's what the NFL evaluators are doing. And that's what a lot of the top media guys is. If you've seen, as you start to look at like the Dane Bruglers and the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world in the last couple of months, we've seen the rise of JJ McCarthy. It's not really so much a rise as much as it's been catching up with what the league itself has believed for a while, and that he's absolutely in this top tier of quarterbacks.
Jamie, I know we got to get you out of here, but we're asking everybody up until the draft, if you're the Commanders, who do you like it to?
At this stage, I think they're taking Jane Daniels. I know they like Caleb Williams. I just don't. I've heard some rumors about the asking price that they have gotten from the Bears to move up to 1, and I would be shocked if that's taken by the Washington organization by any means. So I think they're going to end up sticking at 2. And right now, I think it's Jane Daniels. He's really, really popular in NFL circles. He can do a little bit of everything. The arm talent was on display last year. He runs the ball at an extremely high level. He's not Lamar Jackson. I know that comparison will be out there. Nobody's Lamar Jackson, but nobody's Lamar. We have to stop comparing all these guys to MVPs and all pros and Hall of Famers and doing all this stuff. But he can run the ball like an elite option at that level. But he's also grown up over the years. I'm an Arizona State grad, so I watched him at Arizona State and that transition from there to LSU. He thinks the game really well. He's got the arm talent. By all accounts, he was a great leader in that locker room. He's got all the pieces that you want, and he's also got that X factor with his legs that can change the game for you. And I would not be shocked if he's the guy. I don't have a clear picture right now of like, the Washington's definitely taking this guy. I think all those top quarterback options are in play, but it seems like right now that more teams in the league have Daniels at QB2 than any other quarterback.
Great stuff, Jimmy. We appreciate your time today, man. Love to have you on again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Interesting, Adam. Another guy here on the Jaden Daniels train. It feels like we're 7 episodes in now, and it still feels like it's a 50-50 split on this thing, right?
I'm telling you, that's why I like TDN, man. Since I started doing this, I always follow TDN over everybody. And it's not just because I happen to agree this time. But yeah, I think a lot of the takes we've gone over have been kind of outlandish, especially with Bo Nix. I was going to ask him about that, but we ran out of time. But, I think he's got that the most rational. And, evaluating both May and Daniels in depth. What happened with me is the Anthony Lynn hire, maybe I'm being a broken record, changed everything for me. Because prior to that, I would just say, May probably is a better fit. But I think between the Lynn hire and watching, more tape of Daniels, especially going back to Arizona State. I was like, I got time, go back and watch. And just like, we were just talking about, he's cerebral. And one thing I learned about him is, they had to change the hours for the film rooms, not only at Arizona State, but at LSU. He's coming in 5 a.m, film junkie. Like, that's what you want to hear out of a quarterback. So I think you incorporate that with Lynn, his talent set, what Kingsbury likes to do in a passing game. I don't know. To me, again, I like both of them. I have them, 2A and 2B as far as May, but I think May probably would do better in, a different, maybe standard kind of system. I think with Jaden Daniels, the ceiling is just really high, but, we'll always have the conversation until, he shows us different that, can he stay healthy? Can he not take those big hits? But I think I've seen the maturation. I think we've got some smart coaches involved. And if they do decide to take him, I think you really have a good plan, because I think teams have to respect, the threat to run. And I think that changes the kind of defenses you had. Although May can run, I think when you have defensive fronts that are more scared of what Daniels can do, that really changes what defenses can do against Washington, as they, retool their offensive line. So it's not only a draft for, a good quarterback. I think it really will help the run game early on too.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The Lynn hire, I don't think gets talked about quite enough. I think people think about Kingsbury and that spread offense. He's kind of convincing that it's not the air raid. On the film study we did of Kingsbury, by 2022, it wasn't what I would consider an air raid. They were using the tight end. You saw Zach Ertz got signed today for 1 year, up to $5 million deal. He actually was productive the last year with Kingsbury, so I'm not upset at that. Injury prone. He's not here to fix the tight end room. But I do think that the Lynn, by him bringing Lynn on, signaled to me that they were going to be more, you know what Kingsbury didn't do? He didn't marry his play action to the actual play action design, right? They wouldn't run the run. They'd go out and run the play action pass, and nobody bid on it, and he'd wonder why. That's, to me, what Lynn is here, so we can get.
That's what I hear. Everything here. Everyone talks about the run game, but everything here, everyone I talk to, Doc Walker, anybody, they keep hearing the same thing. They want to set that play action, because no matter what era we are in the NFL, these coaches believe, the threat of play action. It just causes a lot of deception. So I think you married Lynn with Kingsbury and, the other guys they're bringing in too, not just him. I think
Brian Johnson from the Eagles. That was Dak. Not Dak, but I'm losing my mind here. For Jalen Hurts' best year was when Brian Johnson was the run game coordinator there, and married the two together. So they're bringing a lot of that in to try to help whatever Kingsbury deficiencies might be. And interestingly enough, we talk about that in the running game, but if you go back and look at, if you just do the goal line numbers, which people love for fantasy, which I know this because I saw it in a fantasy post, but it was, remember the Arizona Cardinals traded for Connor from Pittsburgh. And he led the league that year. And then the other guy, what was they had a real small guy there.
Edmonds, was it Edmonds or somebody else? I can't remember.
It wasn't Edmonds, it were Redmonds or something. But at any rate, though, I mean, that guy led the league in short yardage red zone carries that year. So
we're not talking about scat backs. Like, that's the thing. So it's like, this aerial attack, they're still using that traditional running back. And that's why, like, when you think of Brian Robinson and, even Rodriguez, I think, you marry, a young rookie, you develop a guy like, faster guy behind them. I think that they really want to get the ball running. I think if you can really have that, I hate the word balance, because I think it's just going to be more game planning from what I hear about, week to week. So I think that if you have a team that just has a bad run defense and you can do that, then the next game you could throw for 350 yards. I think that just makes you, even though it's going to be a first year and has to be a lot of patience, I just think that's going to be the kind of stuff that keeps them in the game early on. But I think the typical air raid system in the NFL these days, I think you have to have extreme talent at every position on offense, and I think you really have to have a good team right now. But I think they're going to marry the run game to this, because Lynn doesn't leave San Francisco in that situation to just come and just be a coordinator and nothing more. I think that there's really talk of, like, listen, we're trying to create a system, and people, layman fans don't know, and I'm just learning this myself, to be honest with you. In the NFL, the best coaches now aren't guys that are coming in with their system, like McVay, O'Connell, and these guys are constantly evolving their systems every
That's
year,
right.
and they do that by outside consulting or bringing in guys to really change things. And so far on paper, I really like what watch. I see the blueprint for it, so hopefully it can come all together. But I love the Anthony Lynn hire, and like I said, I really like Daniels, but it made me love Daniels after they brought him in, because I think that when you can have a coach like him that has notoriously worked with quarterbacks, not just the running backs, I think it's just a really good situation. So
It'll also be interesting to see with this new system that they form. Another thing that they like to do in that air raid, and again, it may not be air raid, I understand that, but Cliff Berry by nature, that is a very fast up tempo offense. Why they did not use motion very much.
right,
Interesting.
interesting.
It slows you down from getting the ball high. They wanted to go, go, go. In a league where motion is being used more than ever, Adam, I'm curious kind of how they will, again, how this system of theirs will evolve to include things that just, it's almost impossible to imagine an offense without that motion, and yet Kingsbury used almost zero of it in Arizona.
It's interesting, but I hear we can expect a lot more gap run game. A lot of them going on the outside. So I think that even though there's not going to be a lot of pre-snap stuff, I think that they're going to be able to be, they're going to be creative in how they run the receivers. I think, with Aniba, we saw, if it's a matter of guys just not running their routes right, timing's off or whatever. But when I understand this offense, you're not going to see that kind of miscommunication early on, because it's like very steadfast. Guys aren't overloaded with different jobs in their position. It's you're the X, you're the Y, you're this, you're slot, and they're going to stick to it. So that's what I'm expecting. But what I do expect is for them to get Terry McLaurin heavily involved early on, because I think they know that unless they go out and get another guy right now, that's the key to their success with their young quarterback. So it'll be interesting, because, like you said, I'm a big fan of pre snap motion, because I think it creates a lot of confusion, makes guys have to reset, things like that. So it'll be interesting. But so far, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. They've got none of the interesting thing about this, Jeff, is that none of these guys have multiple connections to each other,
Right.
Particularly on their separate sides of the field.
Right.
And so how quickly can these guys get it together? Now, the nice thing is for coaches, they can be working together right now.
Right.
They don't need to take time off unless they want the time off. So they could be formulating and planning how it is they'll implement this together. But almost everybody brand new. That'll be interesting. They'll need to add receivers, Adam. Usually, I think this is one of those guys that likes to run through 4 receivers a lot. So that'll be interesting. I know they did that a little bit less as they, brought in Ertz and kind of added some of the tight end.
Right.
So I think that'll be fascinating. A little bit more news from this week. Leno was also let go. Gates was also let go. So, I mean, we've kind of talked about this before. I think we both thought it was coming. They're looking at 3 to 4. If Ricky Stromberg can start at center, we don't know that he can, but if that's their plan, they've still got to find 2 new tackles and a left guard for a unit that needs a lot of cohesion. There will be none this year. What do you expect them to do at tackles?
I don't expect them to wait until the draft to try. I don't think you make these cuts and just say, okay, we're going to go into the draft and we're going to throw some young guys to the fire, especially when it's leaning towards it's not going to be a first round tackle unless they move up, after they
would you move back up into the first? I know we've talked about this. Is the time good enough to wait, or would you, if the guy's there, go get them?
I believe there's going to be a run on receivers and offensive tackle come towards the end of the first round. It's not just because of mocks I've seen. It's just when I just look at my top 50, it really is starting to pan out like that. So you could wait, but the issue is if you wait till the second round, number one, they're definitely probably right tackle or interior guys. I think that, some of the better named guys at left tackle are going to be ones coming off the board the last like 5-6 picks in the first round. So I think if it could cost you, your second and your third, which is probably was to move back in, maybe next year, day 2, day 3 pick, I would do it, because if that means the difference between, a starting caliber tackle or a guy that you might have to develop a little more in the second round, you consider it. But I think you have, after that first pick, you have 4 picks in the second and third round. So I think, if you're going to do it, that's the time to do it. When you get to the 4th round, that's when I can see, them trading back, try to acquire other picks. Because one thing this team needs is depth at multiple positions.
There's no doubt about it. And they've got no DNs to speak of. I mean, I like Henry. I think you like KJ Henry. I don't think either
I
one
like
of
him
us.
in a rotation or role,
I
like
was just going to say, I don't
but
think either one of us think
no
he's a
starter.
premier pass
The
rusher.
starter's not on the team right now. That's and I don't think that they're going to. James Smith Williams, great guy, everything, but I think he made himself some money, and I don't think they're going to bring him back. They bring him back at that $10 million range, which I think he'll be worth. I don't think that's somebody to say that's your starter. I think you got to maybe make some moves in free agency, but we're seeing the bigger names are getting tagged. But I'll have a free agent article coming out this week. But there's a couple guys out there that not household names, but I think guys that haven't been given a chance to really start.
Okay.
So we'll see about that, but I think that's going to be something I have to be really patient with. And I think the fact that they have Allen and Payne, initially I thought they'd trade Allen, but I don't think that happens now, because I think you go into the draft and free agency, you got these two guys in the middle. You have some leeway on the outside. You can develop some guys because there's less pressure to, I think, have immediate day one contributors. So I think having those two guys in the middle will definitely help. But they're gonna have some growing pains this season, though, no matter what.
And I think if I could get the second round pick for Allen, then
You consider it, yeah, because you could get upgraded.
I think I'd more than consider. I think I'd have to make that move. But his deal is team friendly, so it doesn't hurt. And of course, we have tons of money. I don't want to get out of here before we talk. The news du jour is Cam Curl today, so I thought we'd spend just a little bit of time talking about before we get out of here. Where are you on Cam Curl? What are your thoughts there? It sounds like when we had PFF Brad on Monday, I think he put the number somewhere around 12. Sport Track puts it somewhere around 15 is the average. If he's not quite Derwin James, but it's not the bottom 10 money. They currently have 3 safeties on the roster. Quan Martin, Derek Forrest comes back, and
Butler.
Thank you. You comfortable going into next season with those 3 as the safety group? Where are you on Cam Curl? What do you pay him? Does it matter?
I keep hearing everyone's talking about Quan Martin replacing Curl. Personally, I don't see it. I think he could do. I think he's serviceable, but I honestly like him more in that nickel role. I don't really like him that strong safety role. If we're looking at Quinn, looking at any of his teams from the past, especially, I think that a guy that would come cheaper than Curl that's hit free agency is Jeremy Chin. He's an interesting prospect. We heard them talking about Buffalo nickel, stuff like that again. And this is a guy who's that, that hybrid, that they can just really have some fun with. And I think that, they're going to be looking for more turnovers at the position, but I think you're going to have to go into the draft. I really think to find those kind of guys, it's a decent safety class, to be honest with you. In the top 5, it's going to be one of those. They're interchangeable. Cameron Kitchens from Miami, really good. This kid out of Minnesota, really good. People are flipping back and forth, who could go first. They'll both be available, in my opinion, Washington in the second round with one of those picks. But, a guy like Jeremy Trent you bring in, I think I haven't looked at the spot track numbers, but I would bet he's under 10 million. And I think that's a good deal for someone like him. I think that the only reason he's fallen out of favor of Carolina is a whole philosophy change. I think if we just look at what Quinn did in Seattle, just like things he's done in the past, I like Chin in the strong safety role. But, it's really going to come down to, is Quinn evolving on what he's looking for in that position? Is he looking for, 2 guys that are more in that free safety role? Granted, Washington has some of those guys, and
Is Forrest the starter in your mind?
I think right now Forrest and Butler are your safeties until further notice. I think
because that's because they're the other ones on the roster at them. But are they starting caliber safeties? Is what I'm saying.
I guess so. I think they're one or two of them are going to have to be, unless they, like I said, go into free agency or draft. But I think they're starting caliber. Forrest, I think that he could actually be decent at strong safety, but again, I want to see higher end ceiling in those positions. But I think those guys are more than serviceable.
If it took the pick 36, a 4-year deal with an average value of $28 million a year, would you sign Brian Burns?
How much a year? 28 million, you said?
28 to 30, probably. I think the franchise net number is right around 28. So if we're looking in between,
I think
31, something like that.
I think if you're considering trading Allen, I think if you're trading Allen, you make that deal, and I think you can go in the draft and get a guy more than serviceable defensive tackle. even in the third round, that because I think Payne, I think we're yet to come to see how good he can be. I think Allen, we've kind of seen. I think he's plateaued, honestly. So I think his leadership is, what his calling card is. But I think Payne will continue to get better, especially under the new defensive coordinator. So
I think you're right.
I don't think you have Payne, Allen, and a contract like Burns, though. I don't see that. They traded Sweat and Young. I think you keep one of those guys if you're thinking down the road you're going to do something like that.
All right. Well, let's see. Next week maybe we'll do our first mock draft.
Sounds good.
And okay, we'll see you, buddy. Oh, quickly, you're doing what do you've got something new, a new project on Sundays, right? Tell me about it.
Yes, man. I'm trying like the couple
You're
weeks
busy
leading up
man.
to the draft. That's when it gets real busy. Yeah. With the Red Zone in the Lab, you have to forgive me. With Kyle from Burgundy Zone, Ken Johansson. We just got together. We do a draft show on Sunday. Talk about different positions, different guys that we've evaluated. For me, it's good. Integrate my scouting reports onto the show. So yeah, we'll have that every Sunday night, and then of course, I just jump on other shows that are asking me to come on, talk about draft because honestly, I'm just going through all the prospects, and I'm really excited for this draft because I think even though quarterback to me is a foregone conclusion. I think that there's no way they don't go quarterback with that first round pick, but to have 4 picks in the second and third round after that for an evaluator for Washington, it's really exciting because I think there's some elite talent in the top like 65, 85, and I'm still going through in this class that I think, can make immediate impact. So yeah, we'll be talking about all that just like on here, man. Just draft.
Yep, it's there's no doubt it's got to be a dream for guys like Adam Peters to have that picks in the top 100.
Yeah, gotta be.
All right, brother. We will see you next week.
All right, take it easy.